And
Yeah.
I'm just curious, how long will we be together?
Oh, probably it depends on how long your story takes, but I
Okay.
like to try to keep everything definitely under an hour. And if you
Okay.
want to try for 30 to 40 minutes, that's
I
good
have
too.
plenty of time. I have another appointment at 6. I just want to make
Oh, all
sure.
right.
I just want to make I got you have all the time or as little time as you want if I'm boring.
Oh,
I just want to make sure I do have that other appointment too. So
yeah. No, I get it. And yeah, when I first started this podcast, a little over 4 years ago, I used to pride myself, or and this was before I started interviewing people too, but I would try to keep it to 30 minutes or less because that was sort of like my shtick, if you will.
mhm.
So, but then I started branching out doing masters runners, and now I'm doing the extraordinary people. And then I have a friend of mine who's done a bunch of 100 milers, and I nicknamed him Hundo. And so sometimes we'll have a, Paz and Hundo, we'll have one of those episodes. We haven't done those lately, but yeah, or during COVID, I actually talked to people, just about how they were coping, during COVID, and then also just, how it was affecting their running and stuff like that. So, I mean, I've tried to find little niches, just
Mhm.
because I don't want this to be like every other podcast about
Sure.
running. For me, it's more about the stories and overcoming adversity and stuff. I mean, I
Mhm.
know some of those are, the same thing, but this isn't always about the person who wins the race.
Sure.
Although I've interviewed a couple of
We
people
don't have to
lately.
worry about the winning the race conversation today. So
That's okay. So you are in Kansas?
correct. Wichita,
Okay.
Kansas is where I live.
Wichita, Kansas. Were
Mhm.
you born there?
No. Um, I lived all over the country. My father worked for the Department of Justice, and
Okay.
we lived at he ultimately was a federal prison warden, and
That
we lived
sounds
all
fun.
over the country, different facilities. So I lived in multiple states. I mostly grew up in either for the longest period of time, um, El Paso, not pardon me, right outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan, a place called Milan, Michigan, and
Okay.
then El Paso, Texas.
Okay.
And then I
Great.
finished my high school career in right outside of Oklahoma City.
Oh, very good. Okay. So, yeah, you said Grand Rapids?
Nope,
No,
nope, just right outside Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor. That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, because my family, they love to go up to Michigan every year for vacation, and I've joined them the last 2 years, although I'm not going this year. I don't even think they're going this year, but we would go up to a place called Glen Lake, if that makes
Mhm.
any sense. It's by, I'm trying to think of what the big city is. It's up north. It's on the lake. I can't think of what it's called.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it depends on which lake you're talking about. There's
yeah, I know.
multiple.
I
There's
think
multiple
it's
lakes.
Lake Michigan, but yeah.
Okay. Well, there's Traverse City. There's
Traverse City, that's it. Yeah. The Cherry Festival, or the
yeah.
Cherry Capital.
Well,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful there in the summer, and the weather is really nice. Imagine because a hot day in Michigan is like 85.
Oh yeah.
Um, I moved in my eighth grade year. We moved to El Paso in August, and the first day I was there was 114 degrees.
Oh, God.
I was not happy with that at all.
So how's Wichita treating you?
Wichita's well. It's home now. I've been here for 20 plus years.
Oh wow. Okay.
I lived here once and then moved to Colorado, which is part of my running story. And I lived in Boulder for a number of years and then moved back here. But this time I've been here for like 20, probably 22 years or so.
Wow. Wow, that's cool. So yeah, I don't think I've ever been to Kansas, and I'm from Ohio originally. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's
Well,
one
being a
of the
big Michigan fan, I usually don't tell people what I was actually born in Ohio,
really, what part?
Chillicothe, Ohio,
Oh, I know where that is. Yeah, I'm from
down in the
Cincinnati.
southwest, Ross County,
Yeah,
southeastern
yeah,
part of the
yeah.
state.
Yeah, we used to, when I was a kid, we used to go to all these oh God, what do you call them? Pioneer villages. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
They got the
Yeah.
the setup. Yeah, and it just seems, I don't know. I don't know if Chillicothe's got one, but I just know that we would drive through there, and yeah, interesting.
Well, at one time there was a federal prison there, and that's how we
Oh,
ended up
right,
there.
of course, yes.
Yeah.
You must know all the fun spots.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of them. It's kind of the family business. I'm not in it, but
Yeah.
my father was a prison warden. My brother ended up as an associate warden from a federal prison before he retired. Even my grandfather worked for the Bureau of Prisons in a different capacity. So it's been a whole
Man.
thing. I'm the only one who like went and did other stuff.
So what do you do?
Right now I own a real estate company and I sell real
Okay.
estate, full-time residential real estate.
Okay.
I've done a lot
I'm
of
going
other
to take some
things.
notes while I'm talking to you. Okay, so residential real estate.
Hmm.
Wow.
I
So
own
how's
a,
the market going now?
the market is the market. The thing about Wichita is that it's always about 6 to 12 months behind, close to 12 months behind what's going on either coast. Right. So and
Okay.
that's just the way it is. So I can look at my colleagues and what's going on in California and what's going on in New York. And about a year later, that's what happened here. So when you get from a credit crunch standpoint or unemployment or whatever, so we could, as they started feeling that a year ago, we
Mhm.
were just going gangbusters. And now our market's starting to tighten up, but it's
Yeah.
just the way that it moves, right? And
Yeah.
I'm used to that. So
Right. So you've got the stomach for it then.
that's what I do.
That's what you do. No, that's
Yeah.
very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So are you a realtor or
Yeah.
what? Okay,
Yeah, I'm a
yeah.
realtor. I own a real estate team called the Benefiel Group,
Oh,
and I
nice.
also am a national real estate coach. I work with a company called Club Wealth, which is a real estate coaching consulting
Uh-huh.
firm, and I help coach new real estate agents that get into the business across the country. So I have about a half dozen clients
Oh,
that I
that's nice.
do with. Yeah.
Yeah, I just bought my first house about 5 years ago. So I know I waited a long time, but
Time to
um,
sell and buy a new one.
no, I love this place. It was built in 1931 and
Yeah.
they flipped it. So, it's still,
Mhm.
I mean, it's got issues, but it's not, awful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And
and
whereabouts you live, Donna?
I'm in San Antonio.
San Antonio?
So I live just
Okay.
south of downtown San Antonio. Yeah. And it's a
Mhm.
cool little neighborhood. It's yeah, it's like a working class, kind of variety of cultures and whatnot.
There are some cool. I've been to San Antonio quite a few times. There are some little pockets of stuff. Some
Yeah.
great little places to eat though
Oh, of
in those
course.
neighborhoods.
Oh, yeah.
Some great little restaurants. So
Well, I
last
don't know
time
if
I was
my
there,
neighborhood.
I stayed
What's
at the
that?
Airbnb. I said last time I was there, it was probably about a year ago, and I stayed at Airbnb. I went to a conference and I stayed afterwards for a few days, and I was out. Of course, I just run wherever I'm at, right? And so one thing is scout out is, oh yeah, I want to hit that little place or that little place or that little place.
So you run to eat.
Unfortunately, yeah.
No, it's okay. A lot of us do that. So it all makes sense. So anyway, that's interesting. Yeah. When you were talking about the coaching real estate agents, it's funny because that's what reminded me of when I bought my house because I listen to Dave Ramsey a lot. I don't know how you feel about
Mhm.
him, but uh I don't know, I just find him uplifting. I mean, I'm not great with money, but I do like listening to what he has to say. And so when I bought my house, I found one of his, I think they call them ELPs. It's something licensed, whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that worked out really well for me. So
Well, good.
yeah, because it can be kind of you know a crapshoot to be honest.
Sometimes, yeah, if you're not getting a referral directly from somebody and somebody you don't know, I mean, trust me, there are a lot of agents out there who, I mean, they sell a couple homes a year and they just don't have the experience, and you don't really know that.
Yeah,
And then when it gets into negotiations with repairs and problems and issues, and it can get really dicey. So, I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere,
yeah.
but there's a big difference between somebody who sells 40 or 50 houses a year and somebody who sells, three or four.
Right. Yeah. No. And I mean, and I liked the guy that I dealt with. I mean, he was kind of a character. I think he's from like New York or New Jersey or someplace, and he just
Mhm.
didn't take crap off of people. So and I'm a single woman, so it was just sort of like help,
That's what you need. You need somebody who's going to fight for you and not just roll
Yeah.
over and just want to make everybody happy. You don't need to
Right.
make everybody happy. You need to make my client happy.
Right. No, I mean it was a really good experience. But anyway, good God, enough about that. I'll sit and talk to you all day about anything else. But anyway, so we're here to talk about your running career. So before we get into all the nitty-gritty, I'd like to know, were you always a runner or did this come later in life or when?
I think like a lot of people have a lot of spurts, right? So, part of my story was I was in the Marine Corps. And so, you learn to run there whether you want to or not. Right. So,
Yeah.
when I was done there, I could knock out 7, 8 miles at a time, and I'd go through various phases. And running for me has always been a way to control my weight, right? And so, at various times I would run and run for a while and lose a little bit of weight. In my when I was 30, I decided to run a marathon, and so I ran 2 marathons the year I was 30.
Wow.
And then I didn't run and run leading up to that, of course, your 10Ks and 15Ks and stuff
Sure.
like that. But then after I did that, I think a lot of people, okay, I did that. And so I didn't race anymore. I didn't run that much anymore. And then I didn't pick it up again until, I mean, on and off here or there, but didn't
Mhm.
pick up running seriously again until 2019.
Oh, wow. Okay. And if I can ask, how old are you now?
I'm 56.
Okay. Oh, you're young. Yeah. Okay, cool. So you picked it up in 2019, and
2019.
what made you decide to pick it up? Thank God, pre-pandemic. Yeah.
I looked in the mirror one day and I'm 5'7.5", and I was 240 pounds.
Ooh.
Actually, I was 238 pounds. And a friend of mine introduced me to a program called 75 Hard. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but
Ooh.
it's a physical and a mental challenge program designed by a guy named Andy Frisella,
Okay.
has a big podcast. At that time, it was called the MFCEO, and now it's
Okay.
called the Real AF. He's a real conservative guy. He owns a big supplement company, First Form. Have you ever heard of First Form? But
No.
he developed this program where for 75 days, you have to work out twice a day, right? So for 45 minutes each time, and one of those has to be outside.
Oof.
For that 45 days, you had to drink no alcohol. You have to choose a diet, any diet you want, right? Whatever it is. And
Yeah.
then, whether you need to gain weight, lose, whatever, but you have to stick to it 100%. You have to drink a gallon of water a day,
Ooh.
and you have to read 10 pages out of some sort of business related or self-help book. So it was, it's kind of and then you have to take a
Structured.
progress picture each day.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine in real estate introduced it to a friend of mine, and they put this little group together, a little Facebook together, and he tagged me in it. And I saw that. I'm like, I can do that. And so I started doing that. And
Yeah.
the first day I went out to run, I could run a mile and a half as far as I could go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And less than about 8 months later, I ran my first 50K.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I just
And
started
what
going,
was your
and
first 50K?
first 50K was one called Hell on Gravel in
That's
a place called El Dorado, Kansas.
ooh. Okay.
And it's called that because it's in July.
Oh God.
And it was that particular day, that I ran, was about 97 degrees, and it was about 90% humidity.
That sounds like one we have here in Texas. It's called Habanero 100. Have you ever heard of that one?
I have heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Same thing. It starts in August at like
hmm
at noon, and it's on this crazy, yeah, ranch that's got all the sand and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
So Hell on Gravel. I love the name.
Yeah.
So and how did that go?
Went well. I finished. I think I finished like 6 hours, 30 minutes, 36 minutes or something like that.
Dang, that's
Um,
really good.
I had went from that 242 pounds at that. I ran that race probably around 185.
Okay.
So I had done well. The thing about that particular race, because it was so hot and humid, and of course I didn't know anything about nutrition or
Of course not. Yeah.
or anything that like everybody else, or of course I knew I had to drink, and so I had a little Camelback, drink my water. Of course I drank it all. Um, at about 20 miles, I got these extreme, and I started feeling it, but I got extreme cramps inside on
Oh,
the inside of my thighs. In fact, I was
yeah.
running along, and I'd been fighting them for a little while, but they both seized up at the exact same time. In fact, I just went by an aid station, and when they did, I yelled, I like screamed like ah. The cameraman thought I fell, I got hurt or something, and no, they just seized up. So I had to do the last 11 miles, basically alternate and run and walk and run and walk. And so I finished it.
That's
I
awesome.
had banked quite a bit of
At
time because I didn't know what I was
6:30?
doing either.
Wow.
Yeah. And I finished it. But then the next day, if you can imagine, the inside of my thighs from my groin all the way down to my kneecaps were dark red bruises
Oh,
from the muscles pulling themselves apart, and blood. And so I had these huge bruises on the inside of my thighs that lasted a couple of weeks after that. Of course,
wow.
I
You
mean,
didn't
those
die.
No, I didn't die, and I knew I would finish it because I mean, what else choice do I have? I didn't know how long it would take me at that point.
Mhm.
But yeah, my wife was not real happy with me, but she knows me well enough at this point to know that it don't matter.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do
Well,
some
it's
more,
it's good to
right?
have someone supportive. Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
does she run?
no, she does
Okay.
not. No.
She's like,
She
you
has
do it.
sense.
Oh,
She has common sense.
yeah, she'll cheer you on. Yeah. So after you did that first 50K and you didn't die or anything,
Mhm.
you just had these crazy bruises. What was next?
Well, leading up to that, how I got from decided to do this 50K was during that time of doing that 75 hard program, which I finished, which took
Hmm.
75 days. Part of that is reading, 10 pages a day. And I'm a reader, but I'm not like a voracious reader. But when all of a sudden now you're reading every single day, I read like 7 books during that period. And one of the
Wow.
books I read, which I'm sure you've probably heard of, was David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me.
Oh, I haven't heard of that. I was
Um,
hoping you might say Born to Run, but
Dave,
okay.
well, I read that too during that time.
Yeah.
But David
Definitely.
Goggins' book called Can't Hurt Me, who's of course David Goggins, a Navy SEAL, and
Uh-huh.
he got into a lot of ultra running. And so, as during that process of reading that book, and I got up to where I was doing about 13, 14 miles. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to run a marathon. And so I just woke up on a Saturday morning on Memorial Day weekend and said, you know what, I'm going to run a marathon today. So I got my car and I went out and I plotted out a 26-mile course and I got myself some water, dropped a few bottles off, and I ran a marathon. And
Awesome.
so I finished it. I don't remember what the time was, but I finished it and I got thinking, okay, so now what am I going to do? Now I could run marathons and I could run faster, but I'm at that point I'm 54 or whatever. I'm not going to run as fast as I did when I was 30.
No.
So what's next? Well, maybe we'll just go longer, right? And so from reading his books and watching him run 100-mile courses, and he did Moab 240 and some of the other ones,
Yeah.
why don't I just try some longer distances? So that's what led me to sign up for the first one, Hell on Gravel. And then I did another 50 a couple months later. I think it was in October
Hmm.
of that year, and that was one called the that was the ultra, what was that? It was in Ottawa, Kansas,
Okay.
Ultra Trail Festival, and
Ooh.
they have 100 miler, 100K, a 50K, a marathon and a half marathon, and it's all run on these old rails to trails, so it's pretty flat and
Yeah,
straight,
those
very
are
small
nice.
grade, but
Yeah.
it's straight out, turn around, straight, run straight back.
Okay.
Right? And the 100 mile is even 50 miles out and 50 miles back.
Oh my God.
So I ran that, and I bettered my time by about 20 minutes.
Hmm.
And so what's next? Well,
Yeah.
I can do this, so why don't I step up and do 100K? So
Why
I
not?
got on the internet and downloaded some actual training plans. I thought I need to get a little
Oh,
bit more
those are so
scientific.
important. Who needs those?
Maybe somebody else did it before me, right? So
Yeah.
I downloaded a 100K plan. I found one I thought was interesting. I found one, the Zion 100,
Okay.
which at this point was in 2020.
Okay.
It was one of the few races that was still being run in 2020,
All right.
right? And it was in April of 2020, or was that
Okay.
2021? Hold on, wait a minute.
I'm looking at your note for me and it said, or
April
to me, it says
2021, excuse me. It was
2021. Yeah. No, that's
2021.
okay.
2021.
I pulled it
But it
up.
was, there was still a lot of stuff being canceled then. It was April
Yes.
2021. And I had been to St. George before on business years ago. I'd been to that part of the country. I love that part of the country. And so since I'd been there before and it was in April and it's warm there and it's cold here, I figured,
Hey,
why don't we run 100K in the desert?
right. And it's beautiful out there.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I had a couple friends that lived there as well,
Nice.
that I met through business, and so I could just kind of connect up with them, and
Hmm.
decided to go focus on something. And at that time, during the pandemic, you needed something to focus on. You talked about that earlier, right? The pandemic, and
Right.
what did it do for me in running? I mean, it didn't slow me down any. Kansas, we're pretty conservative, so we're pretty wide open. We weren't locked down at all. I mean, I
Yeah.
was still doing business. I mean, kids weren't going to school, but I was still going to business, going to my office every day. I'm out running every day, living life, going to restaurants and doing whatever. Wear a
Nice.
mask. You got to wear a mask, but things here were pretty as normal as you could be, short of living in Florida, right?
Yeah,
Um,
or Texas.
right, exactly. So we're kind of a hybrid there, but that's so I decided to go run 100K.
Sweet. And so how'd that go?
I finished that one too. Um,
Okay, good.
although that one was a little bit dicier.
Why?
Um, well, um, a couple of reasons. So being, reading a lot about, preparing. So even though I'd been to the area before, it had been years. So a few months before the race, I decided to fly down there and check out the course. So
Good.
I flew down, went and ran. One day I ran like 15 miles on one end of the course, and then I ran like 20 miles of the end of the course. So I got a really good visualization exactly what it's going to look like coming up to the finish line, and where I was going to turn here, and then you're going to come onto the road, and you're going to come off the road, and I'm visualizing. So I've got this visualization of
Right.
exactly what this is going to look like, and I took some pictures. And
Mhm.
so as I'm training, over those last few months, I'm looking at those pictures every day. I'm visualizing myself come across the finish line, and I had it all figured out. It's going to take me about 14 and a half hours, maybe
Not
15
bad.
hours.
Yeah.
And man, was I mistaken.
The
First
best
of
laid
all,
plans. Yeah.
first of all, you cannot simulate that terrain in Kansas.
Yeah.
No way
I can
about it. So
imagine.
there's a lot of desert running, but there's also a lot of vertical gain with that. It's
Yeah.
also, most of it is on the mesa, which is above, it's right at, I mean, it's like 4,800, 4,900 feet, almost a mile.
Hmm.
Kansas is not a mile high. I'm sorry, it's not. So there's no way to simulate that.
Yeah.
Um, and the other big change was there's about a 35, there's about a mile and a half, um, about 4 miles into the race, about 5 miles into the race, there's about a mile and a half gain up this mesa on a really, really bad, really gnarled up single track. And it's about 3,500 feet to the top of it. And it's about mile 5.
Oh
And
God.
so I ran that when I went out there. And it took
Yeah.
me about, when I went out there the first time, it took me about 30 minutes to get up it the first time,
Dang.
27, 28 minutes. I was moving along pretty well.
That's good.
But that's at the beginning of the race. Well, about 2 weeks before the race was had to happen, the area where they start the race in this big parking area they had, that they had for the last few years, the people who owned that part of the ranch sold it, and they could no longer use that part for parking and staging and everything. So they had to flip flop the race.
Uh,
So no longer was that vertical at 5 miles. It was now at 39
oh
miles.
God.
So what would have been, really doable, especially at the beginning, and
Sure, when you're
now
fresh.
it's at 39 miles. It took me
Oh,
almost an hour and 45, 50 minutes to get up it at 39 miles. That took me less than 30 minutes to do it 5.
wow.
Um, it was very warm that day. In April, you expect it to be in the 70s. It
Yeah.
was down on the bottom, in the desert part. It was in the mid 80s above.
Yeah.
Um, and because it had flip flopped, the terrain was also very different at the beginning now. And so I finished the first marathon, basically the first 26 miles. And that's where I ran into, I got to a crew station. My wife was there. My youngest son, who's at that time was 20 or
Okay.
21. He was there. He flew down from Seattle.
Mm.
And I was not in good shape at 26 miles
Oh.
because it was 10 times harder than I thought. I ran that distance many times, right? Even in training. I ran up to 37 miles in my training plan. So
Yeah.
I had run that, but never on that constant varied terrain. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm running on
And
a
then
lot of
that heat.
flats and I find
Yeah.
some hills, but it wasn't that hot yet at that point. It got so not long after that.
Hmm.
Um, but that constant varied terrain over and over and over again, up and down the slick rock that they have out there and the different trails and stuff. It I went out. I didn't go out super fast, but I went faster than I should have based on the terrain that I was running on.
Right.
And so I was looking a little weary, and I was not in a good nature. I
That's
snapped
understandable.
I snapped at my crew a little bit. But I'm not going to rest very long. I got myself something to eat, something to drink, and lingered for about 10 minutes and time to go.
Out, yeah, you have to.
And it was time to go. And um, it did fine, until we got to going up that vertical. And the funniest thing happened to me. Well, part of the reason was at the very bottom of that incline, they had a water station, unmanned water station.
Mm.
Because it was so hot, they had run out of water.
Oh God.
And so I was counting on filling up my pack at that point.
Sure.
So I had like this much water in
Oh
the bottom of it.
no.
I had some I use science and sport gels, one of the
Mm.
things I use a lot. So I had probably half a dozen of those still. About 3/4 of the way up this thing, all of a sudden I got this wicked cramp in my calf.
Oh no, no, no.
And I'm like, I'm sitting there and it's hurting. Out of nowhere, this little Japanese guy, he like pops out of nowhere and he hops up there and he grabs my leg and he grabs my heel and my toe and he starts pulling up
Oh
until
my God.
he's stretching my leg until it goes out. And I told him I'm out of water. He gives me a little bit of water and then he takes off. I never see this guy again. I'm only maybe 1,000 yards from the top.
Was this
So
a
I'm able to
hallucination?
no, it's true. I get to the top and then I'm able to get up there. And if anything was that, for cramps, people drink pickle juice and stuff like that. I hate
Yeah.
pickles. I never drink pickle juice. I hate pickles. I downed I don't know how many shots of pickle juice up there. Once again, about 10 minutes, got something to eat, changed my shirt, took off. And then there was a crew station about 4 miles from that where I ran into my crew again.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I'm at 42 miles.
Yeah.
And we
It's 20
have
to go.
we got 20 to go. There's a famous line in that book by David Goggins, and one of his kind of mantras is, "Hey, there's nobody coming to save you. In all things in life, you are responsible for yourself.
Very true.
You're responsible for your input, your output, what you get. And when you're out there in the middle of nowhere, there's nobody coming to save you."
Yeah.
As I left that cruise station, my son yells to me. He yells, "There's nobody coming to save you, Dad." And it was funny because at that and I was maybe 30, 40 yards away. It was that exact moment I knew I was finished that race.
That's awesome.
No matter how long it would take. I just knew because I knew.
Yeah.
What I thought would take me 14 hours took me 19 and a half.
Well, that's still pretty good for 100K. Yeah.
It took me 19 and a half. I was happy. Trust me, I was happy. I finished it like 3 o'clock in the morning. My wife had a flight at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh no.
I was smart enough to book an extra day in the Airbnb, so I didn't fly home until a day later.
Thank God.
Of course, I had to crawl around that place by myself, for the next day. I made the mistake when I got back. I had a nice hot tub because I booked a place with a hot tub. I got in the hot tub, but I couldn't get back out. So my son had to drag me out of the hot tub. I couldn't get out of the hot tub.
Oh no.
But
well, at least you had a hot tub though. So
but that all started a whole new kind of a journey for me because I decided after I healed, and it took a little while because I had some, had a few niggles, if you want to call them that, here or there, but I had some foot issues. And so it took me the summer, to really start to feel good again. And so it was probably around July where I started to feel there was no pain left in my feet or, my ankles. So I'm feeling good. And I decided I'm going to run a 100-miler. And I pick out the Rocky Raccoon 100-miler, which is down in your neck of the woods.
Yeah,
right?
good choice. Yeah.
And so I'm working my training plan. And I decide to go to Colorado to go train. And so I take a week off and I go to Colorado, and I book a TP. So for a week, actually 5 days, I'm sleeping in a teep about 20 miles up above Pagosa Springs. So we're about 7,500 feet. I'm sleeping in a teepee at night. That's all furnished. I mean, it's like a bed and breakfast. This guy's got like these 3 teepees and he's got beds
How
in them. And
fun.
but I'm by myself and I'm running, every day. And sometime on one of those runs, I think about the third day, I kind of tweaked my right knee a
Oof.
little bit. Well, no big deal. Just, a little, because I'm running on single track
Right.
trails and
Yeah.
someplace no trails. And then the last day I went down, I went to another town. And I tried to run that day and it bothered me quite a bit. I only ran like 3 miles that day. I was running like 16, 18 miles. And that day it was bothering me. And so I soaked in the hot springs at Pagosa Springs and I got home and I tried to run and it hurt. So it's okay. I'm doing normal. And, I'm going to take some time off. So, I take like, 4 days off or something stupid. And I tried to go out and run. And it was
Yeah.
interesting because right after that, I was in San Antonio. It was right
Oh,
after that. It was in November. Now it's in November. So I'm in San Antonio. And I try to go run there and I run a little bit. I run 4 or 5 miles, but it's still bothering me. And it's just not right. You can tell, when you run a lot, when something's not right and it hurts. I got this pain and it's not swollen or anything, but just doesn't feel well.
right.
Um, and then there's a group that I would run with once in a while here in Wichita. Not a lot, but especially it's called Long Run Saturday Group. There's all
Mhm.
people that are trained and mostly
Okay. Yeah.
half marathon and marathon runners. They get together and they run 8 to 12 to 14 miles. They were only running like 8 miles that day, but on my program, I had 16 to do. So I went out and ran 8 before I met up with them. Well, about 7.5 miles, I'm running. All of a sudden, my knee just goes pop,
Oh,
and I'm on the ground. And I get up, and not only can I not run, I can barely walk. I mean, it's a lot of pain. Ultimately, I'll leave out some of the details, but I tore meniscus.
oh,
Now, I had 2 previous meniscus surgeries on that same knee, so it wasn't a surprise, right? I tore meniscus, and
yeah.
so that started a whole new journey after that,
Yeah.
right? I didn't know I tore a meniscus at the time. I mean, I knew something was wrong,
Hmm.
so I went to the doctor, went and saw the doctor. He looked at it and, he goes and took the MRI and goes, yeah, you have a torn meniscus. Of course, the doctor, the orthopedic guys, we could give you some cortisone shots and, or, we can put some gel in there. I'm like, well, that's not going to last a long time, is it? He goes, well, no. I go, well, I don't want to be in the middle of a run, a race. And why don't we just go ahead and get it fixed?
Yeah.
So we schedule the surgery. They can get me, and I want to get done right away, right? So I want to get back
Of
to running.
course. Yeah.
So and I'm seeing him in December. So literally like 4 days later, 2 days before Christmas, I'm in there to have my meniscus, trimmed up. No problem. Goes great. Good to go. Um, I'm feeling good. I'm out walking, going to the gym, still doing a little upper body stuff, whatever. About 8, 9 days later, my knee starts to hurt and
Oh
starts to
no.
swell up. And, the incision points are getting really, I'll leave out some of the details, but I had some extreme pain. Um, and I ended up going back to see the surgeon. I'm leaving out some details just for
The gory
speed's sake.
details. Yeah, it's
But
okay.
ends up, so I finally see the surgeon. He takes a bunch of fluid off my knee because by now it's pretty swollen, pretty bad, and I'm in extreme pain.
Ugh.
And he called me the next morning and said, "You need to go to the hospital right now.
Wow.
You have a septic infection in
Oh
your
no.
knee, and we need to clean it out. We need to do surgery on it immediately. So you need to go check into the hospital, and I'll be there in a couple hours." So I go to the hospital. And my wife's a nurse, by the way.
Oh, okay. That's handy.
Now she's the nurse. I give her a hard time though because she's not like a nurse like, you know, what's wrong with your knee.
There,
She's
there. Yeah.
she's an executive nurse, and she specializes in Alzheimer's and memory care,
Oh
and
wow.
assisted living facilities, and she works for a very large organization that and she covers multiple assisted living facilities in multiple states.
Yeah.
And so she's a nurse, don't get me wrong, but I never listened to her.
Much to her
Right.
chagrin. Yeah.
So I ended up in the hospital. I call her, I was going to the hospital. Anyway, so they went in and they had to debride that and clean that out. And I had a septic infection. So they admitted me to the hospital. One thing I left out was, I had surgery 2 days before Christmas. On Christmas Day, I found out I had COVID.
Oh God.
Now, so now I go to the hospital. And so the doctor, when he called me, says, you have to go to the hospital and say, I'm sorry to tell you, but because I had when I went to see him, they tested me. And when he called me back, said, oh, by the way, you have COVID.
Oh
Well, I
God.
already knew I had COVID because I had it 10 days prior.
Oh
That
no.
was right when the CDC changed their rules to where the maximum amount of time you had to quarantine was
Isolate.
10 days. Isolate was 10 days. Well, it was actually the last day. And
Oh,
so he told me we're going to have to isolate you for 10 days in a hospital. I'm like, no, I've already had it for 10 days. And he goes, well, when
yeah.
did you get it? And I told him the day. And he goes, oh, okay, well, we're no problem. So anyway, I'm in a hospital. I ended up staying there for a week anyway, because
Yeah.
it took that long for all my levels. I then ended up on 8 weeks of intravenous antibiotic injections.
Oh
I had a
God.
PICC line in my arm, and so for the next 8 weeks, 3 times a day, I had to give myself antibiotics and
Oh,
clean the line out, and I had to do all that. Of course, I wasn't running at this time,
of course not. Yeah.
and so over the course of 2022,
Hmm.
so that was January.
Right.
It took it it takes a lot longer to heal when you're 55 years old than when you're 30 years old. And that, the
Exactly.
first knee surgery I had, I was on a flight the next day, right?
Whew.
um and so I had multiple infections. The infection wouldn't go away. I got an infection in the other knee.
Oh no.
And then they gave me some antibiotics, whatever, and I got an infection in my chest, a couple months later. And then it came back up in my eye.
Oh my God.
And then it came back in my hand.
What the
It's just every
world?
few months. And they kept giving me different antibiotics. And of course, the antibiotic doses are getting larger and larger. And, they're trying to combat it and they can't really figure out. And meanwhile, my knee's still, it's not healing. I mean, it's healed, but I can't really do anything. I try to run, but I can't do more than a couple miles. And, I'm trying to do whatever I can. And I'm getting really frustrated. During that time, of course, I did exactly what I said I didn't want to do, which was I don't want to gain a bunch of weight.
Right.
Well, here I am back at 240 pounds. I've gained 35 pounds or so, 40 pounds over that year.
Oh
Well,
no.
the last time I went in for my hand, at my wife's urging, because she'd been after me for a while to have a physical, because I'm a typical guy and I haven't had one. In fact, I probably hadn't had a physical since I was in the Marine Corps.
Oh wow.
Right.
That's
So
a
it'd probably
while.
been 20, probably been 30 years since I had one. So I said, Doc, while I'm here, why don't I go ahead and get a physical scheduled?
Hmm.
He said, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Have you ever had one? He's looking to him like, nope. So, so they take all the blood work. I go back, I see him, a couple weeks later, and I have extremely high blood pressure.
No.
I have high triglycerides. I have high cholesterol, like 250, like 256.
Ugh.
My blood glucose level is over 200. I'm now a type 2 diabetic,
Oh no.
plus all these other things as well.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And of course, because of the high blood pressure, all the other stuff, the doctor wants to prescribe, some statins and, Ozempic for this and this and all these other things. And I said, Doc, I don't think I want to take any of that. He
Wow.
looks at me like, because I thought about this,
Bold strategy.
because I was able to get the information, I was download the information. So I knew what my scores were before I went back to see him. Right.
Yeah.
And my A1C was like 7.4. I mean, I was all jacked up. And I said, is there going to be any harm to me if I wait, 90 days or so before I start taking medication. He goes, well, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I don't think you'll do any long-term harm, but I wouldn't go any further. He goes, said, here's what I want to do. I'm going to leave and I'm going to come back and I'm going to see you in 90 days. In 90 days, if I haven't been able to significantly change all these factors, all these things, then let's talk about meds. Because I know you can't necessarily outrun your genetics. And there's high blood pressure in my family. My mother has high blood pressure. My brothers has some high blood pressure, even though they're both, I mean, my mom's 83, but she weighs like 115 pounds,
Wow.
so, and then further back, there's some diabetes and some things like that. So maybe I can't. So I give myself a goal and a target, like we long distance runners like to do. And so I went back 90 days later, which was 2 weeks ago. And I weighed 196 pounds. So I lost 42 pounds in 90 days. I lowered every one of the scores. My A1C went from 7.6 to 4.7 or something like that.
Wow.
My blood pressure was 119 over 76.
Ooh,
My triglycerides were lower. My everything else, my cholesterol, everything was all in the perfect range. I literally reversed everything.
that's amazing.
Everything. And when I went back and saw the doctor, which was 2 weeks ago tomorrow, he
Mhm.
was astounded. He said, first of all, this makes my day, because people leave here all the time and say they're going to do that, but they don't do it. And they
Yeah.
may lose a little bit of weight, but they don't necessarily change. Well, the difference with me was my knee was finally starting to feel better. I
Yeah.
could run again without pain.
Mhm.
Little discomfort because I have some scar tissue in there. Because
Yeah.
if you can imagine, when they go in and do a mastectomy, they go in couple little spots, but when they had to go in and clean out that joint, you can imagine that, just cleaning out and having to take out some of the tissue, the infected tissue, all the other stuff.
Mhm.
So I have some scar tissue in there, so it bothers me a little bit, but that's starting to break down.
Yeah.
I'm up to like 15 miles at a shot now, but I was able to reverse all of that, and I have to take anything. And he was really, really happy. He goes, I don't know if I've ever done this. I'm actually going to take that type 2 diabetic diagnosis out of your file. I mean, you still have to be
Good.
careful from a pre-diabetic standpoint. You got to watch a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
but I was able to reverse all of that. As part of that process, I started running again, and I started picking up a few races, and I went and did a half marathon down in the mountains in Arkansas.
Ooh.
And I wasn't quite ready for that yet, but
But you tried and
I
you
did
did
it.
it.
I
Yeah,
completed
you
it.
did it. Yeah.
I completed it. And then I've run a couple
Was
other
that like
ones.
about a week or so ago, or when was
It
that?
was it was last month. It
Oh,
was at the
last month.
beginning of it was the beginning, like the 5th of April or so. So it was a
Okay.
few weeks ago. It was like maybe 3 weeks ago. A place called Petite Jean State Park
I
in the
love that.
Ozarks.
Yeah.
And to call that a run would be generous, because it's about 3 miles of actual runnable track, and the rest was all vertical up and down, single track, rocks,
So
over
weird.
rocks, through.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're a trail runner in the Ozarks, that's what you do.
I know. You just don't
I'm
picture
a trail
it
runner
like
from Kansas,
that. Mm-hmm.
right? So I was not prepared whatsoever for now. Fortunately, I was only half marathon. And
Only.
so there was no time during that where I actually just, it was so beautiful. I just enjoyed myself. I took a lot of pictures. I walked when I had to, going down some really
Sure.
steep stuff across the creeks. I just enjoyed the run. I wasn't even worried about my time. This was the first
Good.
time I ever ran in a race and wasn't worried about my time at all.
Good.
I just enjoyed it, but it was still challenging because it was so much up and down, rocks, scrambling over
And
rocks and
the
stuff.
knee held up and everything.
It did. There was one point where I had a real big drop where I had to like really extend it, where I could really feel it, because I don't have 100% range of motion in that
Mhm.
knee. It's a little bit short of that, and it pushed it all the way in that
Yeah.
range of motion, and so I could feel it. But I mean, it was a little sore afterwards.
Hmm.
But I mean, I was running the next week. It was not a problem. In fact, I
Didn't
ran. I ran
die.
2 days later. I led at the conference I went to, because I was on my way to a conference in Nashville.
Okay.
Originally, I was going to run a race in Nashville, in the
Mhm.
mountains, actually south of Nashville by Chattanooga, but it got canceled at the last minute. So I picked up this other one in Arkansas on the way, and so I led a run at this conference I was at in the morning. You know,
Fun.
couple days later. So
Yeah,
it was no big deal.
that's awesome. So, so what's next on your agenda then in terms of races? Are you going to come back and try Rocky?
Well, I kind of I kind of got my eye on that.
I think it's
I
great.
gotta. I mean, honestly, I do. I actually I have a friend who's in the ultra running community. His name is Billy O'Sullivan. Some of your listeners may have heard of him. Him and his wife run ultras. They run extreme ultras. His wife, I don't know if they're running this week, the 250, the Conda 250.
Oh, Cocodona, you have a
Yeah,
friend
Cocodona 250. They've run it before. I know I saw some pictures of him and post that they may be running it again. They ran Moab 240. They've run that several times. They ran that earlier this year.
Whoa.
I think they're running a 400 kilometer in 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 Scotland, I think, later this year. And so, but I've met him through real estate. I've actually never met him in person. Anyway, he does a lot of volunteer stuff. He does a lot of trail marking and stuff like that. And he's talked to me in the past about volunteering. And so I actually signed up and went down to Rocky Raccoon in February and volunteered the week of the race.
Oh, nice.
So, and that's the first volunteering thing I've done some
I
like
love
little 5Ks or
volunteering.
whatever. But
Yeah.
I was there before it started. I was there a day early and I stayed until the day
So
after
you're
and I
hanging out
camped
with
out and
Chris and PJ. Yeah.
had a good time. And most of the time I was right at the start finish line because that's a loop course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was there, 24, 30-hour race. I was probably there about 18 of those hours
That's amazing.
there ringing the cowbell and just, cheering people on. And I made about 2,000 pancakes all through the night on the little grill.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, we were cooking pancakes and I don't know, about I don't know, maybe 1,000 quesadillas. Who knows? Just constant all night long. We were
Oh,
making
yeah.
pancakes and quesadillas and refreshing people and just having a good time. And I made sure I stayed. I wasn't able to stay all the way to the end, but I stayed for some of those 30-hour finishers and stuff. Because I
Yeah.
remember when I finished at 19 hours of who was there, and when nobody there.
I know.
There's like somebody handed me a medal. My wife and my son were there, and that was about it. So
Cricket
everybody's
chirping.
there, for the winners, but no, usually not a lot of people there at 30 hours. But
Yeah.
so I enjoyed that, and I actually went there for a secondary reason because I needed to check it out. I
I
wanted to
was going to
see
say,
what
you
it
were
was like.
scoping it out,
I
weren't you?
was, I was, and
Fun.
so I am I am contemplating. I need to decide pretty quickly on whether or not I'm going to go run that in 2023. But
Cool.
I
Well,
have a lot of training to do.
yeah,
I am going to go run the Hell on Gravel again in July this year because it's 10 miles from my house.
why not?
So I can just go over there. I can drive there and run.
Right.
So and that's in July. So I think I am running a half marathon this week. I also signed up to be a pacer with the company called Beast Pacing, and they do pacing at marathons all over the country.
Hmm.
And I'm actually doing I'm pacing a half marathon this weekend
Oh,
here
fun.
in town, which will be my first time doing that.
That will be fun. That'll be
Yeah, it will
interesting.
be.
Yeah. Wow.
So, you give them your times and stuff, and then they match you up where you're going to
Right.
be. And so I think I'm running I'm thinking like a 12-minute pace or something like that,
That's not bad.
which would be nice and easy for me.
Sure. Sure.
And I can enjoy that. It also fits in right now where I am in my training too. It's right.
Hmm.
I'm right at about 13 to 15 miles on a long run.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's
So I got
great.
to decide pretty quickly whether or not I'm going to do Rocky Raccoon, and
Lucky.
I probably will. I'm just hesitant to mash the registration button.
Oh, come on. You want to do it.
I know I
I'm gonna
do.
be, I think I'm gonna be pacing a friend of mine out there. He's gonna
Yeah.
do his first 100 out there. Yeah. It's funny, you guys remind me of each other too, so it's really
Hmm.
weird. I was like, wow, you remind me of my friend Jeff. Um, yeah, I love to pace people. I mean, again, I'm not fast, but I
Yeah.
do enjoy that because and especially like in the middle of the night or something, just
Yeah.
to
At about 20 hours in, you don't got to be fast.
no, no. And you just have to like I can talk if they want me to, or I can
Hmm.
shut up. Just
Yeah.
make sure that they're eating and drinking and not
Hmm.
crawling off into the woods to fall asleep, because I've had that worry before.
Well, one of the things that I'm struggling with is as part of this process of losing this weight, and I trust me, I have some more weight loss goals. I'm not running 100 miles at 196 pounds where I am right now. I've got another goal to lose. I want to get down to 185 by Memorial Day. So
Good.
another, 10 pounds. And I really want to get down to about 170 to race that, right? Which
That's
is,
good.
which is a healthy thing for me. But it's very difficult for me to stay there. But
Yeah.
part of that process in doing that, of course, I've cut out all sugar. I mean, I've been really transitioning to be much more of a fat adapted runner than a
Okay.
carb
Yeah.
adapted runner, which is really messing me up because I don't know how to fuel myself right now.
Yeah.
I'm still learning, even though I'm 90 days into this thing. I don't eat very hardly any processed anything anymore.
God love you.
I'll never be a vegan. That'll never happen. But I don't eat any. I'm not eating any bread. I'm not eating potatoes. I'm not. I'm just not eating
All the
processed
fun things.
stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not eating a lot of carbs.
Hmm.
And it's serving me very well.
Good.
I intermittent part of my weight loss process also I intermittent fast.
Oh
I'm a
yeah.
16 to 8 every Wednesday. I do a 24-hour fast as part of that process, and I feel really really good, but I can't quite figure out yet how to fuel myself on longer runs and shorter runs, no big deal, 4 miles, 5 miles,
Right.
but over 10, start getting to 13, 15, you're
Yeah.
going to run out. And
Hmm.
so I'm already feeling that. And I know what I used to do. I was a tailwind guy, I had tailwind in my
Yeah. Yeah.
pack, science and sport gels, mangoes, and a lot of high carb, high sugar stuff. And I'm not consuming any of that anymore.
Right.
I've been experimenting with some different electrolyte stuff, etc.
Hmm.
I haven't quite figured that out. So I got
Yeah.
a lot of work to do even before
But you're not the
July.
first, so I'm sure there's somebody out there that probably has
Well, I'm
advice for
I'm
you.
reading and trying to figure that stuff out and talking to people, and it's just so different. You've been
Yeah.
doing something for I've been doing something for 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah. See,
Right?
yeah, I couldn't do that. Yeah,
Well,
no.
it's just that I don't want to go back to I'm just better if I just stay away from that.
Right. No,
I
it
just
makes
stay away
sense.
from that stuff. So, and when I found out, and a lot of people find this out when they start running, you've done obviously long distance as well. I actually gained weight in the last couple of months up to running 100K because I'm running a lot. I'm building muscle, but I'm
But
also
you're
having to
also
fuel myself. And also, if you go out on a Saturday, I don't know about you, but if you go out on Saturday and run 35 miles, you feel and justified to eat whatever you feel like Saturday night and Sunday
absolutely.
and Friday too, by the way.
Yeah. Oh,
So a
definitely.
long
Got
run, a 30
fuel.
mile Saturday starts with Friday morning, right? And I eat whatever I want to because I'm running Saturday. I eat whatever I want Saturday night. Sunday, I eat whatever I feel like because it's my day off, right? Which then translates into Monday. So now 4 days a week, I'm eating whatever I pretty much want. And so I actually gained weight.
Hmm.
And so I got to find just a different way to do it. And
Yeah.
I have time, but
Yeah, you do. You
you know,
do. Well, I hope you do Rocky. It'd be fun to meet you and
I'll
whatnot.
probably be down there either way. If I don't run,
Okay.
I'll probably end up
Good.
down and barely maybe pay somebody. I
Good.
wasn't in a position to be able to pay somebody this year,
Mhm.
but I definitely could.
I'm
In the
sure there'll
future.
be people that would love to, yeah,
Yeah,
have you if you aren't going to run the race. So, well,
I
very
mean, if
cool.
we'll see how my guess is after I run, a 50K or two this spring,
Yeah,
this summer.
you're hell on
Then
gravel.
then I'll be like, yeah, my knees holding up, everything is where and I can go through that training block.
Yeah,
Then if I can go through a training block, then yeah, then I'll do it. But
yeah, yeah. No, I feel that about the injury thing. Yeah, I've been dealing with this hip flexor thing for quite a while, and I think I finally am starting to turn a corner. But oh my God, it's so frustrating because it's like I just haven't been able to, do the kind of running I want to, just because it's like I don't want to hurt myself. But I've gone out a couple times this week, and it hasn't like it's not throbbing at the end. So
mhm.
foam rolling, it's your friend.
I have a new one that I've been dealing with, which is Achilles tendonitis
Oh, I've had that.
in my left leg, in my left Achilles.
Ugh.
And so I've been babying that. In fact, I actually made 8 days without running. But I got to go run Saturday. I got to
Yeah,
run a half marathon,
yeah.
which is why I took off because I just I didn't want to stop doing anything because I really had that goal of that doctor's visit. And so even though a
Yeah.
few things were bothering me while I would modify some stuff, I wasn't stopping. So, which probably to the chagrin of my Achilles on my left leg. So,
Yeah.
it's feeling better right now, but I've been stretching it, and
Good.
I still go to the gym. I do a lot of full body kettlebell workouts at least a couple
Good.
days a
I've been
week.
doing some of that too. Yeah, I love it. Rowing. Oh my God. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's fun.
Yeah.
You know, so
It's
it's like,
funny when you see people get on a rowing machine, they get on for like 10 minutes and I'll get on for like 45.
oh yeah.
They're looking
Well,
like you're, and they go do something, they come back, you're like, you're still there. What are you doing?
I know. Well, this gym I go to, they've got these like they're called water rowers. And so it's like got this,
Mhm,
you know what I'm talking about?
mhm,
Yeah, it's really interesting. And man, I love it, you know, because it's like I was really bad about lifting weights or, you know, doing any of that. So being injured is, you know, forced me to, you know, work on some of that. And it's been kind of nice. We do TRX and
mhm.
kettlebells and sometimes the battle ropes, stuff
Yeah.
like that. You know, it's like, woo. Yeah, it's been kind of fun.
Anything to differentiate stuff too. And that's really been me from the cross training
I
perspective.
think that's how you end up getting injured if you don't do that. Yeah. So,
I also have a bike.
yeah.
I have what we call a gravel bike, which
Uh-huh.
is kind of I'm familiar with that. It's kind of a cross between a street bike and a mountain bike.
Okay.
And where I live, we have nothing but dirt roads. I mean,
That's great.
gravel roads everywhere. And so it's set up for the terrain where I live here. And so I sometimes I'll hop on that. I'll knock out a race or two, like a 30-mile race or something. And people
Nice.
ask me if I do triathlon. I'm like, no, I have no interest.
Me neither. I
I
can't
just
swim.
don't.
Or I can't swim well. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
But there's a reason for that. And I find that, and it's one of the things that turns me off about biking. I'm sure you probably have some people that listen to you that bike. Um, how well you do in biking has a lot to do with what gear you have.
Oh, absolutely. It is
I
all
mean,
about the gearing.
I have a $780 gravel bike,
Hmm.
and you know, I'm next to a guy who's got a $4,000 carbon fiber bike. He's got a $500 pair of shoes. He's got a
Right.
$400 helmet,
They're the
and
worst.
I'm not poor, but um,
It's
I
a lot of
just
money.
I just gonna bad enough buy $140 pair of shoes, you know, 6 times a year.
Yeah. I
Right?
mean,
I
what's the
just
problem?
don't.
Yeah.
I like the Spartanness of running, and specifically trail running. I just
Yeah.
like that you don't need anything. All you need is a decent pair of shoes and something to carry some water in. And when I started, I just had water bottles that I would fill up and drop, you know, every 5 miles and
Oh,
pick one up
yeah.
and drink it.
I've done that.
You know,
Yeah.
and a $20 little vest that I got from Walmart. And
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more sophisticated than that now, but my entire kit when I go out and run from beginning to end, including shoes, is maybe, you know, $300 total.
Right. Yeah, no, it is a
You
lot
know,
less expensive. Yeah. So yeah, I
so
started out as a cyclist. And so yeah, I can tell you that yeah, it's and that actually is really my strength. But I gave away my bike to my sister because where I used to live, I was living in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, which is southern tip, you know,
mhm.
and people were just getting hit left and right on the road. And it was just like, okay, I'm not going to become, you know, somebody's roadkill. So yeah, so
Well,
it's
that's
sort of
another advantage of gravel riding. I'm on dirt road, so there's very few. I mean, you still have that possibility,
yeah, but
but
not as
one,
much.
you can see them and hear them coming a long way away. They'll sneak up on you, and there's not much traffic.
Right. Yeah, that was yeah, it was just sort of a drag, but yeah, but I remember I loved doing duathlons back
Mhm.
in the day, you know, and
You
because
don't
I
see many of those.
no, I love duathlons. It's like my favorite because I'm not a great runner, but I could always beat people who had just bought like the very expensive bike like the week before, even on my crappy, you know, 10-year-old bike that was basically a 10 speed at that point. But I
Mhm.
knew how to gear, you know, and so if you're in the big ring, baby, you're doing okay, you know.
Yeah,
So it's like all these people are like, you know, it's like, no, 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 that's not gonna work.
they
But
do have one here locally to me, and they call it a paddle to gravel. So it's there's a lake, and I run around this lake. It's right by my house. And they do a couple mile stand up paddle board,
oh, fun.
and then like a 15-mile bike ride after that.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
And so
I
it's
love those
definitely
things.
unique. It's different. You don't see that. And so I
Mm.
I've been out running a couple years in a row, and all of a sudden I forget that they're doing it, and all of a sudden all these bikes are coming on the same road, and I run really early in the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, like some of my long runs like 3:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning.
Ooh, that's
Well,
good.
if you sell real estate and it's a Saturday, that's prime time. So if you got to run 30 miles and then go show houses in the afternoon, you got to start pretty early.
Yeah.
So, when I was really training, for the longer runs, I'd get up at, 3 o'clock in the morning, be on the road by 3:30 for 6 hours,
Yeah.
and then go home, hit the greatest thing I ever bought, which was my hot tub, take a little nap, and then by 2 in the afternoon, I'm out showing houses.
Mhm.
Not walking very fast, but that's just what has to happen.
It's okay. I'm sure everybody else is probably in the same. They're not going to be moving too fast either.
They feel bad for you though, and then so they feel very bad, so they want to buy.
It's a good strategy. I like that. I like that. So,
Yeah,
well, Mark, I have just really enjoyed talking to you. This was
me
really,
too.
really fun. And I'm going to stop recording real quick.
Sure.